Jim, listen, the things that people follow you for and that you're really recognized for is your financial acumen, of course. And I just wondered, I heard an interview with you about 6 months ago that was on the internet. It was broadcast everywhere from Business Insider. And you were talking about the biggest bear market of your lifetime, the biggest stock decline ever. Are you still on the track of that? Do you think that we're heading towards a real financial calamity?
Well, Porter, what I said was, and I'll say it again to be sure it's clear, we have always had financial problems in the markets in America or any country you want to pick since the beginning of the republic, and we will have more. And I said that the next one is going to be the worst in my lifetime because there's so much debt. In 2008, Porter, you remember what happened? That was because of too much debt. Now, Porter, the debt is much, much, much higher, as you well know. So the next one, when it comes, is going to be the worst we've ever seen. Now, I hasten to tell you that Janet Yellen, who's head of the central bank in America, says, no, we're never going to have financial problems again. So if you believe Janet Yellen and the American Central Bank, you should stop listening to me right now. But my view is that when the next one comes, it's going to be a doozy.
I happen to agree with you, Jim, and no surprise, you've followed my work over the years. And one of the things I note is that the nature of the debt has changed. Back, let's say, 10 years ago, the debt was really focused in consumer mortgages. And today, the debt is really focused in consumer loans. And
it's even worse because when you start having governments fail, oh my gosh, who's going to bail us out then? You? We're all going to call you, Porter, for you to bail us out. But when you start seeing governments fail around the world, boy, that's when you're going to have serious, serious trauma in many countries and many markets. You're going to have governments fail. You might even have countries fail when the governments themselves cannot step up and bail people out.
do you think, Jim, it's reasonable to expect that Japan might be the first society that we see go through this type of metamorphosis?
Now, that's an extremely good question. Japan has staggering debt, as we all know. They have a declining population and debt that's going through the roof. And Mr. Abe says he's going to do whatever it takes. He'll print as much money as it takes, and he'll spend as much money as it takes. That cannot last. Now, it never occurred to me that it might start in Japan, but Japan is certainly going to be a big problem. By the way, I own Japanese shares, and I'm buying more Japanese shares today, just so you know. But if I were a 10-year-old Japanese, I would get myself an AK-47, or I would leave, because in his lifetime or her lifetime, that place is going to be a disaster.
Very interesting. I want to move on to the virtual, the crypto assets, cryptocurrencies, and I wonder if you have any opinion at all whether you should own some Bitcoin or own some other crypto assets. Have you looked into this new asset class? Do you think it's all a fiction of the credit bubble, or do you think there's something more to it?
Well, I hasten to tell you, Paul, I have never bought nor sold any cryptocurrency. I wish I had. I'd be as rich as you if I bought Bitcoin back. I never bought any of them or sold any of them. As I look at them now, I read that there are 2,000 cryptocurrencies here in the last couple of years, months anyway. And if you look at the charts, many of them have gone straight up. Now, if I didn't tell you that was cryptocurrency, if I just you would say, well, that's a bubble. And then especially if I showed you that some of them have already gone to zero in the last few weeks, a few months. So I don't know. I know it sounds like, feels like, smells like a bubble developing. Does not mean it won't be successful. There was a huge bubble in the internet in the late 90s. You've heard of Amazon. There's some companies that have done extremely well, even though that was a bubble and even though it collapsed. So don't think it doesn't mean that there won't be successes. I don't know. It's my basic answer to you.
Jim, have you seen anything in Singapore or in your travels in Asia? I mean, nobody travels as much in China as that I know as you do. Have you seen any of this crypto stuff in storefronts or in your travels in Asia?
Yes, I've actually seen restaurants who take some of the local cryptocurrencies. I don't know if they still do, but certainly a few months, let's say in the summer, in the summer, I saw restaurants and shops that had signs saying we take X, whatever X currency happened to be. So I've seen it. But to your bigger point, or I'll try to make a point, the computer, the internet is already changed everything we know. You are right. It's staggering. It's beyond certainly most people's imagination, including mine, of what's going to happen. My children will never go to a bank or a post office or maybe even to a doctor in their lifetimes when they're adults, that is. Because everything is changing. We know the world has a money problem of various sorts. We know that everything has been changed by the computer and will be. So, yes, the computer and the internet are going to change money as we know it. If you go to China right now, Porter, people don't have money. It's astonishing to me. They buy a cup of coffee, they put their phone on the thing, and there's a cup of coffee. It's paid for. And they look at me pretty funny when I say, I have some cash I want to pay you. They say, we don't want to take cash. Cash is not efficient. And as you know, governments don't like cash because A, it's expensive, and B, if they can't control you as much if you use cash. But if you have everything on your computer, then the government will call you up one day and say, oh, Mr. Rogers, you've been drinking too much coffee recently. They'll know everything you do and where you do it. So governments like to get rid of cash. Everybody's going to get rid of cash. So it's all going to happen. It's all going to be on the internet. How it evolves, I'm not smart enough. I'll have to read your publications. Three other things could happen. One, governments could issue their own cryptocurrency. They could control it that way because governments don't like any of this. They don't like gold for that reason. They want to be able to control everything you and I do, and they want to know everything.
And by the way, I was interrupt very quickly. China appears to be headed in that direction. They have outlawed all of the other ICOs, and they appear to be in the process of handing down a set of rules that will require all cryptocurrencies to be trackable.
Okay, well, as I say, we have to watch what governments do because governments don't like you and me. They like to have all the power themselves. But the other thing, of course, is that if, God forbid, there should ever be some kind of disaster and there's no more internet, even temporarily, what are you going to do? You go in your refrigerator and you bring out your tomatoes and you can swap them or eat them. But after that, you don't have any internet worldwide or even regional-wide. You don't have any money. But in that case, I would certainly have a little silver and gold or a few bags of sugar or something in the closet because barter is going to be the only way you'll survive.
So, Jim, I'm happy to tell you personally, I just made my largest gold coin investment ever last week. I called someone who you may know, I don't know if you do or not, but his name is Van Simmons. He's a coin dealer on the West Coast, and he invented PCGS, the professional coin grading system. And I asked Van, I just said, hey, listen, outside of bullion coins, what's the lowest premium over spot? And he said, circulated St. Gaudens and circulated Liberties. And I said, send me X amount. And I don't want to tell you X amount because, the IRS might be listening. But I made a very large commitment to gold coins because I actually believe what you just said. I think that sooner or later the governments are going to crack down on virtual currencies and the anonymity will be lost, in which case all of the drug dealers and money launderers are going to be stuck. And I feel like they're eventually going to go to gold because that's how humanity's done it for, as you know, probably about 4,000 years. So I feel very comfortable buying these high-quality coins that have no premium over spot. And I'm not making anyone a recommendation. I'm just telling you what I did with some cash that I had. But I wondered, Jim, what's your position on gold currently? Have you been selling gold or buying gold or neither?
Neither at the moment. I own a lot of gold and silver. I haven't bought any serious gold in a few years. I'm waiting for gold to go down more, at which point I hope I'm smart enough to buy a lot more gold because before this is over, gold is going to go up a lot. It's going to get very overpriced. It might even turn into a bubble. I hope it doesn't turn into a bubble because then I'll have to sell. And I don't want to ever sell my gold. I want my children to have my gold someday. But no, I am a potential buyer. I have never sold any. I am a potential buyer. I have never sold any. It's an index. It's not as though somebody's managing it. It's like the S&P. If the S&P goes down, it goes down because the market goes down, and vice versa. Indexes are always more successful in bull markets because nobody likes to buy a bear market, as you very, very well know. So in the sense that they've gone down, no, people have not made money, including me, in those indexes.
Welcome back to the Keiser Report. I'm Max Keiser. Time now to turn to Jim Rogers of Rogers Holdings, a man who needs a little introduction. Jim, welcome.
I'm delighted to be here, Max. It's been a while.
A headline from Bloomberg News around the time of the G20 read that China and Germany step up as U.S. retires from world leadership. That's the headline. Your thoughts about this? Is the U.S. receding and China ascending, and is there a relationship between China and Germany that is emerging, Jim?
Well, first, Donald Trump, on his first day, withdrew from TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership, which immediately threw the Pacific Ocean area into China's hands. When America basically left, everybody had to turn to China, and China, of course, turned to them. So, yes, we're seeing that America is pulling out of the Pacific in some ways. At the same time, America put sanctions on Russia for a variety of reasons. So that's pushed the Chinese and the Russians together. So many people are getting very involved with it. And the Persians, the Iranians are also being forced into the arms of the Chinese by America. So you have just about everybody on the Eurasian continent turning towards the Asia, now towards China right now. And yes, everybody is, the U.S. is withdrawing, or they're withdrawing from us, or both.
Now, I've observed, and get your thoughts on this, that it seems as though Germany is being pushed into the arms of Russia. Can you speak on this a little bit?
No, of course. They got to trade with somebody, and the Russians are right there. The Russians have a lot of natural resources, and China. The Chinese and the Germans, Germany is the second or third largest trading country in the world. So it's natural that they're looking for new partners, and the Russians are right there. The Russians need the Germans. The Chinese need the Germans. The Germans need them.
But that's an incredible rebalancing of NATO, potentially, if you see what I'm driving at there.
No, Max, you go back and look at any period of history, and you see that when these things start changing, it snowballs, and a lot of things happen. I don't want to get too worried here, but before the First World War, all sorts of changes started taking place, which were revolutionary at the time, but they weren't so revolutionary. We had a big war as a result, and we're seeing a lot of changes like that take place again. Let's hope it's not a war.
I mean, Jim, a few years ago, you got a lot of press. You were telling hedge fund managers to trade in their Lamborghinis for tractors, and that agriculture would be a huge play. Certainly in Russia, that's been correct. You went very long Russia a few years ago. That market's doubled. That's been a huge winner. And that's where the agriculture play is really blossoming. Is that still on the table? Is that still happening?
Big time, big time. One of the best. I expect bad times to happen in the next few years, 2 or 3 years.
We're going to get to that.
But agriculture, I'm optimistic about agriculture no matter what happens in the world for a variety of reasons, but especially in Russia. We put sanctions on the Russians, so they had to buy their food from themselves. They couldn't sell to other people, so all this food in Russia is now booming. I mean, agriculture has it's had a huge boom in Russia, which is getting better and better. I'm a director of a Russian fertilizer company.
Why are those numbers so misstated? Is it because the Fed's trying to keep interest rates low to keep the bonds rolling on those insolvent banks?
Max, you believe governments? What's happened to you? You believe you get your investment advice from the government? Oh my goodness, poor guy, what has happened? You've become deranged. Advice from the government? Oh my goodness, poor guy, what has happened? You've become deranged.
It's kind of tough times ahead for markets, and I guess the U.S. and you know we've talked many times about the dollar and the fate of the dollar. It looks like a great short, but it has been resilient. Are we now on the cusp, do you think, of more of a dollar weakness and kind of this new world order emerging and market turmoil?
Well, I expect market turmoil in the next couple of years, but one result of market turmoil is the dollar's going to go higher because people are going to look for a safe haven. Safe haven. Now, they think the U.S. dollar is a safe haven for historic reasons. and because there's not much else these days. So I own a lot of U.S. dollars, expecting the turmoil to drive the dollar higher. I hope, what I plan is, when the dollar gets overpriced, it may turn into a bubble, depending on how bad the turmoil is, and people flee to go somewhere. My plan is to sell it and buy something else. You see how easy it is to get rich?
Yeah,
I just made you rich
I've
right
been
here.
following you for 30 years, and I think you're responsible for my first million, I think, back in the 80s.
Oh, my goodness.
One of your recommendations.
I didn't get any of it.
Yeah, no. I tried to get to buy Bitcoin when it was $5, if you recall, Jim.
Yes. I wish I were smart enough to have bought Bitcoin.
I was trying to return the favor.
I wish I'd been smart enough or dumb enough to buy Bitcoin. It wouldn't have mattered. It's gone up a great deal.
Your thoughts on this Chinese one belt, one road policy? It seems like they're investing in infrastructure, while in America and in New York, the train system is falling apart. There's no investment there. Your thoughts?
You fly into JFK Airport in New York, you're immediately in a third world airport. And you get in a third world taxi and you ride on a third world highway to a third world five-star hotel. It's not often that geography changes, Max. When the Spanish and Portuguese started sailing around the world, geography changed. The railroad 200 years ago changed geography. Well, the Chinese are now changing geography. This is an unbelievably important and exciting thing. Some people are going to make vast fortunes. Some are going to disappear.
So as an investor, how do you see it? Okay, the one belt, one road, it's a huge infrastructure play. You are the macro guy. What do you, when you drill down and you're like, okay, I want to be a part of this. I want my money working here. How do you approach that? What do you look at? Give people a look insight into your process.
Well, I own some, obviously, people who build railroads and have trains are going to do well because most of it's going to be on the railroad. That's one way to play. I own some Chinese railway companies. But you look at a map. It's going to go through Kazakhstan. Well, something's going to change in Kazakhstan. All the places where the trains are going to go are going to change dramatically. You've heard of Denver, Colorado? Denver wouldn't exist if geography hadn't changed and they hadn't put in the railroad. That's going to happen throughout Eurasia, and it's going to have gigantic changes.
Moving right along, so you have been vocal recently that you are looking for some market turbulence and some, what do you
Max,
think?
every 4 to 8 years since the beginning of the Republic, we've had problems in the U.S. economy. It always has happened. I don't know why, it doesn't matter, it always happens, and it always will. Now, Janet Yellen, the head of the Federal Reserve in America, says it's not going to happen anymore. Everything is solved now. Well, if you take your advice from her, you will think I'm wrong. But my view is it's been over 8 years since we had our last turmoil in America. It's coming again. There are many reasons it's coming again. And then next time is going to be worse than anything in my lifetime. Because in 2008 we had a problem because of too much debt. Max, since 2008, the debt has gone through the roof. Debt has gone through the roof. Debt has gone through the roof all over the world. So the next time we have a problem, and we're going to have one, unless you believe Janet Yellen, it's going to be very, very bad. It's not going to be
the Federal
fun.
Reserve Bank is supposed to be the lender of last resort, not the buyer of first order, right? They buy stuff.
They buy stuff, and they have said that they can buy anything. They can buy gold mines, they can buy stocks, they can do whatever they want.
That's
they
insane.
buy liquor stores. Who knows what they'll do to save us?
But that's a repudiation of their mandate in the strongest sense. They are become a rogue element in the economy. They're undermining the economy. They're dangerous, Jim.
You've just noticed that things are going wrong in Washington, D.C.? Max, why don't you watch your show, for goodness sakes?